Welcome to Building While Flying, a Sasha Group podcast where we interview business leaders about how they tackle challenges, stay resilient, and navigate ever-changing skies.
Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on Building While Flying.
Absolutely. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So Ashley Thompson is the co-founder and CEO of MUSH, a ready-to-eat cold oats snack brand made with clean ingredients. Ashley co-founded MUSH in 2015 after leaving a career as a trading analyst on Wall Street with the conviction that easy, delicious, and nutritious food can elevate the world in powerful ways. So first off, Ashley, I will admit I have never had overnight oats as a snack or as a breakfast food. So can you give me the quick pitch on what it is and what I'm missing?
Yes, absolutely. Ready to eat oats. Super delicious. So we take whole rolled oats. We soak them in either almond or coconut milk, so some sort of plant-based milk, and we add fresh whole food ingredients to make different flavors. And it's basically the most delicious, freshest way and most convenient way to eat oats at this point. So they're served cold and they're portable like a yogurt. So think of like oatmeal meets pudding. And that's what mush is. And yeah, just super clean, delicious whole food ingredients that are portable and spoonable.
Amazing. So it's a direct consumer brand. You're also selling at retail. I know you've got a couple different channels. Curious kind of if you could give maybe just an overview of the business and even a little bit of kind of a breakdown of where your revenue and sales are coming by kind of those different distribution channels.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually predominantly a retail business. So we're highly focused on the retail channel. We have a small direct to consumer presence, but mostly our digital commerce comes from third parties like Instacart, where it's essentially an ordering platform. And yeah. And so, yeah, our route to market has been really traditional for CPG. And the reason for that is our temperature state, we're cold, which makes direct to consumer shipping really expensive,
Yep.
logistically a challenge. And just for most consumer product goods, the biggest opportunity still is in retail. That's where a large portion of sales are flowing through. So we figured, why not? Why fight reality? Let's just go with it. And it's worked out thus far.
Awesome. And so what are your biggest kind of retail accounts and what has been your journey in kind of building out a more traditional retail kind of footprint?
Yeah. Our bigger retail accounts are Whole Foods, obviously the sort of leading retailer in the natural food space. And then we've got Sprouts as well. And then a lot of the regional conventional players like Publix in the Southeast or Wegmans. We're also in Costco in a couple of regions. That's been an amazing retail partnership where folks can discover our product at a really great value, which is awesome and aligned to the overall mission and purpose of what we're doing. And then as well, Target. So playing around in the mass channel, Target's been a wonderful partner to us, and we're sold nationally across all of their regions.
Awesome. And you just mentioned there that, Costco has been helping to deliver on some of the mission that you guys established when you started Mush. And so I'd love for you to maybe dive into that mission and kind of the purpose of the what kind of gave you the reason to start the brand. I know you've in doing some of the research on the company, you talk about kind of better outcomes start with better foods. And I'd love to I think it's a great line. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I'd love for you to just dive a couple, depths deeper on that front. Like, where did that idea come from? And then how did you kind of identify an on-the-go oatmeal pudding snack breakfast food as kind of the first product to help kind of prove out that mission?
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at the first. So growing up, my older sister was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 13. And that's when I originally sort of discovered the idea that, physical and mental are so interconnected. and that what we eat and how we feel afterward can really shape different outcomes in life. And so I sort of kicked off this lifelong journey of learning and understanding about nutrition and food and how it might impact the way we live and what we value and how we become happy, et cetera. And then I also observed this huge public health crisis taking place in America as a result of the foods and beverages that are on grocery store shelves. The food landscape has changed significantly in the last 50 years to incorporate a lot of highly processed foods, and we're seeing the effects of that. In modern society, a third of Americans either have diabetes or prediabetes. A fourth of us have heart disease. And that's basically the number one killer in America. 40 million Americans have mobility issues as a result of overweightness, et cetera. And so just this huge public health crisis got me thinking about, how can we reverse this? What can we do aside from, changing healthcare, et cetera? And I thought, well, the best way we can tackle it is by offering better, healthier foods for folks. And so when I came up with the idea of MUSH, I was running a lot at the time, and I needed really great, clean energy and fuel to keep me going on those long runs, something that I could eat pre or post run, and something that I could eat daily consistently. So something that wasn't too expensive or out of budget. And oatmeal was the choice, the number one choice for me. Super satiating, very clean, heart healthy, offers a lot of great energy, low glycemic index, so doesn't spike the blood sugar that leads then to a crash. And again, pretty relatively inexpensive. And I thought if we could make oatmeal really convenient and still keep it really affordable, but also make it delicious and maybe modernize it a bit, I think we've got a winning product here. And that's those thoughts are what shaped how MUSH came to be.
And the topic you bring up around the public health crisis and how it's not just kind of consumer preference, right? That's driving this. Like there are forces, and it's interesting because we worked with a client that was bringing to market a sugar alternative that was using allulose, and it was all about kind of the fact that allulose is a more rare sugar, but it behaves exactly like sugar, common table sugar. But common table sugar is one of the things that is like driving kind of, it's used in all processed foods, like all the things you're talking about, like can also come back to sugar in a lot of different ways. But as we were building out kind of the work with him, we were learning about how, it's almost like our tastes have been conditioned to need that as an American consumer. So it can't all just be fixed by the consumer side. And then at the same time, that highly processed sugar and the different ingredients that kind of contribute to some of these health issues are more profitable to mass scale and produce, right? And so, you mentioned creating healthier alternatives that are both accessible, more affordable, but are also delicious and enticing to consumers. How, I understand where oats can kind of play a little bit into that sweet spot, but I guess how does that expand maybe even beyond, and how are you thinking about kind of what that might mean for a product roadmap for MUSH?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think what you're touching on is really important to understand and to take into account when you're product developing, which is that consumers have been trained to like a certain taste. We grew up drinking apple juice from an early age. We grew up drinking glasses of milk, which have sugar content to them and the lactate, et cetera. So we grew up with a lot of things, and that shapes our preferences these days. And so it's about trying to make products that are incrementally better than what the current options out there, that also play to our preferences so that they can actually be adopted in a mass way. if, you know, a lot, I think where better for you CPG misses the mark sometimes is that they sort of ignore taste preferences. And so we come up with a lot of amazing products that have so much merit. And if we just could adopt our taste buds that quickly, they would be so successful, but we can't. And that doesn't happen, but we still need to make progress. So what do we do with that? And I think it really is about understanding the current reality and trying to marry just a slightly better option to that reality. And that's why you see our products, they're not free from sugar.
Right.
They're all made with fruits that have sugar.
Natural sugars.
Natural sugars, exactly. And it's in what amounts and from what types of fruits is really what we focus on and what we care about. So one of the things we do for half of our product line, we use dates, and dates are a lower glycemic fruit. So they have really great sugar content to them. They're sweet. And so they play to the preferences of consumers. But they have a lower glycemic index, so they don't create that spike in blood sugar, which is really important for how you feel after you ingest them.
Right.
And I think is a better alternative to what you were describing before, like table sugar, which is just, you know, straight to the bloodstream, sugar spike, et cetera. And it's found in everything.
Yeah, we kind of called it like it's the low hanging sugar, right? Like table sugar and cane sugar it's the low hanging fruit, and it's the higher hanging fruit that we need to be utilizing in order to kind of have some of those healthier options that still give you that delicious taste or what consumer preferences, the reality, you know, of them are.
Yeah, totally.
I'd be curious for how that translates from a marketing perspective and how you educate consumers that, you know, this is, yes, better for you, but also tastes really good. I mean, there's a couple different messages that you're probably wanting to get across, but at the same time, we all know that like you've got to hone in and be concise, and you can't overwhelm people with messages. So I'm curious kind of what have been the marketing channels that have been the most successful in kind of helping MUSH grow?
Yeah. It's interesting. We talk a lot about messaging and keeping it focused and what messages resonate the most. I think we're still actually in the early innings of learning this. And I think it, you know, if we can get this right, it'll unlock a tremendous amount of value for everyone, both the company and consumers. It's interesting. We've created a product that is actually quite unfamiliar, which is cold oatmeal. Like we don't eat cold oats in America. It's not a super familiar format of oatmeal. So a lot of our messaging is just around like, what is it? What is it?
Yep.
So we focus a lot of time educating the consumer on what it is. But then second to that, like, what is it made from? So I think, you know, consumers are really smart and perceptive, and they understand that like real food ingredients usually translates to healthy or better for you. So there's a big ingredient story that we focus on and rally behind. All of our products are made with 8 or less ingredients, all natural ingredients. There's absolutely like no natural flavors, no artificial flavors, no preservatives, no gums, no thickeners, et cetera. So we just have such a strong point of differentiation in that signals to the consumer that we're healthy.
Yep.
And then what other benefits, you know, might they get from the product? And actually, all of our products contain anywhere from 5 to 8 grams of protein, which is sort of equivalent to a traditional yogurt. So, you know, protein helps with satiation, building muscle, et cetera. And that's also a message we focus on that I think is really resonating with consumers.
It's awesome. And I've noticed in checking out kind of your website and your social and things like that, you know, you've certainly leveraged influencers in a variety of ways, whether it's with vertical video across Instagram Reels and TikTok, and kind of, I mean, I remember there was one post of kind of an influencer showing off his fridge, and it was a really comical, kind of humorous post, and so I guess I'm curious, like, what has been I'd be curious to learn how you manage that, because I know like different early stage companies and growth, have different ways of kind of working with influencers. Whether you're just sending them product, or how are you engaging with them? How do you make sure that they're a right fit for your brand? And so I'm curious, kind of how influencers have been, what you've learned from kind of working with ones and when they've gone well and when they haven't.
Yeah. It's a great question. And actually it touches on one other point around messaging, and I'll get back to the original question, but it touches on a point about messaging, which is that it's really difficult to message that your product is tasty. And so how do you do that? Well, get people to try it and talk about whether or not it's tasty. That's the best way. And influencers, naturally they have large platforms where they can authentically try the product and tell people how it tastes. So we've leveraged influencers in that way, as like real proof points around how it tastes.
It's like saying you can't say that you're cool. You have to you have to just be cool.
You just have to be cool. Well, you just have to taste good. Like you can't just tell people you taste good. They'll know once they try it. It's why it's really tough to communicate taste on packaging as well. It's challenging. So we leverage influencers for awareness and especially around taste. And I think, so we do this completely organically, which is really, really important. We seed a ton of influencers. We send them product, either solicited or not. We'll send product and we'll have them try it. And thankfully, I think because our product is so unique, that has benefits and consequences. One of the benefits, though, is that it is so unique, and because it's so novel and new and it tastes really good, a lot of influencers are just willing to post about it and share it because it is something new that they can bring to the table. It's not that, the 20th, chip company or
bar or whatever. Yeah.
Sparkling water company or a bar company. Exactly. It's something new. It does taste really good. Sometimes it's surprising to people that it tastes really good, so that it adds even more incentive to post about it. And that's been working extremely well.
Awesome. I'd love to know, and this maybe takes it back a little bit in the brand's story, but you guys were on Shark Tank. And so I'm curious kind of what were the biggest takeaways from that experience of being on the show, and then what that actually played out for the business.
Yeah. Gosh, Shark Tank was such an amazing experience. I think first and foremost, it forced my co-founder and I to really step outside of our comfort zone and build some confidence and get a big win that helped, launch us on the right path and in the right trajectory. So that was awesome. We found a really wonderful business partner in Mark Cuban. He's just been so supportive, so flexible, so founder friendly, really, really always willing to listen and offer advice from his perspective, which he has a lot of, just simply because of the amount of experience he's had under his belt. I would say it was after we aired, it was one of the most challenging times in the history of the company. We received, I think, something like 10,000 orders in the first 2 days after airing, and we couldn't even fulfill it.
From direct consumer?
Yeah. And we had never fulfilled a single order. So you're talking about a team of 4 or 5 people we had full time at the time. We had just launched the website, and we get 10,000 direct to consumer where we need to put a perishable product in a FedEx box and ship it nationwide. And we, our forecast was completely off. We ran out of cups like a couple weeks into fulfilling these orders, and we had to really pivot hard. And it was a big undertaking, a lot of lessons learned. Ultimately, we came out of it, stronger than ever before. But it was such a bright and amazing moment to air, followed by one of the worst sort of 3-month stints of my life of just grueling pain, having to fulfill these orders and not having enough cups, having to pivot. It was fun.
How often do you still connect with Mr. Cuban?
Yeah, we connect. It's so funny. I'll email him. He answers me quicker than anyone. Like any single human on the planet, he answers within a couple of minutes, like consistently every single time. That's our main form of communication, and yeah, it's been really wonderful. I've learned like how and when to tap him, and I think that's worked incredibly well. Like what I should bring to the table with him, and maybe what I should leave for others. But yeah, he's phenomenal. Just like so sound, like such sound advice all the time, consistently. I think that's the piece that's um, admirable in him is like, anyone can give good advice every now and again, but he does it like pretty consistently, which is cool.
I think that's an important part of having. I mean, it reminds me of kind of how my relationship with Gary has evolved over the past 10 and a half years, where I really don't reach out to him that often anymore, and he gets plenty of updates on what's going on with the Sasha group, and there's things that clients that we're working on together and things like that. But you kind of over time you get to know when is it all right. You've come to a crux, a point in the road, like, all right, who would actually have a really great perspective on this, and then you go to them. So I love that.
Exactly.
So where is growth coming from next for MUSH? What's on the roadmap of where you see kind of the next opportunities? You talked a little bit about the growth in the retail channels or dabbling in mass with Target, but what's kind of next from a growth perspective for you guys?
Yeah, funny enough, the greatest opportunity for growth right now is focusing on the core product line. We just still have so much runway, both from a distribution perspective, from a household penetration perspective. So in an environment, especially in this environment where it's a really choppy supply chain environment,
Yep.
Focusing on inflation, et cetera, focusing on scaling the core, I think will yield the most fruitful results, and we're excited by that. I mean, it hasn't gotten old yet. Like when we see people discover the product for the first time and see how it may or may not change their lives, it's really fun. It's such a unique opportunity. So we're going to continue to focus on expanding distribution, getting more flavors in the same doors that we're currently in, and driving a lot of awareness and trial. We have 0.7% household penetration right now, like the smallest amount, right? And so just a lot of opportunity there for growth.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, last question here. We always talk, we call this podcast Building While Flying because, it's important to keep calm under pressure when you're driving towards opportunities. And so I'm curious, when you're back against the wall, you're faced with a tough decision for your business, what's that kind of internal pilot checklist that you utilize, that you rely on to kind of help you get through it?
I love this question. I think it's such an important one. Forces like reflection, which is always great. You can always learn a lot from trying to make sense of how you do things. I think the first thing I do is slow down. Like if I need to make a really important decision, like whether I have 10 minutes or 10 hours or 10 days, I try to slow the time down by really, shutting out external voices, understanding the situation at hand, and really try not to let the pace of life dictate anything so much as like let my own internal compass dictate what's going on. And then I think a lot about like for different decisions, there are different decision-making frameworks. And so I have several that I like to think about, and I try to think about which decision-making framework applies best to the decision at hand. And then I apply that framework to it with a lot of rigor. And then finally, sanity check the answer that I've come up with really credible people who may have new or different perspective to offer, that might add something to the decision that I may have not necessarily considered on my own. So that's sort of what I do. Though I bet the process of making decisions, like that's iterative, and I think it
Sure.
changes over time, especially as we grow in experience and expertise. Sometimes you can rely a lot more on gut, et cetera. So it changes.
Awesome. Well, Ashley, thanks so much for sharing today with our audience, and excited to see you guys keep scaling that core.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Thanks.